Greetings friends. Thanks for stopping by for a visit. If you enjoy the video, please subscribe.
I've never really posted about this before, but after talking about it with family again recently, I figured I'd share it here and see what other people think. My family owns a cabin outside Tionesta, Pennsylvania. It's not just my parents' place either. The cabin belongs to my grandparents, and pretty much everyone in the family under them uses it. My aunts, uncles, cousins, my brother, and I have all spent time there over the years. It's kind of the family getaway spot. The cabin itself isn't huge or anything fancy. It's tucked back in the woods and surrounded by a lot of state forest land. Most weekends there are spent fishing, hunting, sitting around a fire, or just getting away from town for a few days. Some of my best memories growing up happened there. As long as I can remember, there have been stories about weird things happening at the cabin. Nothing crazy enough that people stopped going there, but enough that it would come up every now and then during family gatherings. Usually someone would bring up a strange experience and everyone else would either laugh it off or tell them they were imagining things. For years, I was one of the people who thought there was probably a normal explanation for all of it. Old cabins make noises. Animals get into places they shouldn't. People hear things at night when they're tired. That kind of stuff. The problem is that over the years there have been several incidents involving different family members, including one that happened to me and my brother. None of us were together when these things happened, and some of the stories are hard to explain away as just an old cabin settling or someone being paranoid. I don't know if I'd call it haunted, but there have definitely been some experiences there that still bother me when I think about them. The experience that sticks with me the most happened when my brother and I were teenagers. We were staying at the cabin by ourselves for the weekend. This wasn't unusual. We'd been going there our whole lives and knew the place pretty well. Neither of us were really scared of being out there alone. The woods could be creepy at night, but that's about it. One night, we were both sleeping in the loft area. I don't remember exactly what time it was, but it had to be well after midnight. I woke up because I thought I heard something moving around downstairs. At first, I just assumed my brother had gotten up to get a drink or use the bathroom. Then I realized he was still in his bed. A few minutes later, I heard it again. It sounded like something scraping across the floor. Not loud, but loud enough that it caught my attention. I asked my brother if he heard it too, and he immediately said yes. That was the part that got my attention. If I was the only one hearing it, I would have just assumed I was half asleep. But he heard it too. We sat there listening for a minute. Then we heard another scrape followed by what sounded like a chair leg dragging across the floor downstairs. My first thought was that maybe an animal had gotten into the cabin somehow. There are bears, raccoons, and all kinds of stuff out there. Eventually, we grabbed flashlights and went downstairs to check. The second we got to the kitchen area, both of us just stopped. There were several chairs pulled out from around the table. One of them was sitting by itself in the middle of the room. The thing is, we both remembered pushing all the chairs in before we went to bed. It was kind of a habit because the cabin wasn't very big and leaving chairs out was annoying. We checked the doors and windows. Everything was locked. There was no sign that anyone had come inside, and no sign of an animal either. My brother and I didn't say much about it that night. Honestly, I think neither of us wanted to admit how uncomfortable it made us feel. Even now, years later, whenever the subject comes up, we both describe the exact same thing. The noises, the chair scraping, and then walking downstairs and seeing those chairs moved around with nobody there to move them. It's still the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me at that cabin. The second story comes from my aunt, and this happened years before my brother and I had our experience. She's not the type of person who goes looking for paranormal stuff. In fact, she's usually the first person to roll her eyes when people start talking about ghosts. That's one of the reasons this story always stuck with me. She was staying at the cabin by herself for a weekend. I think she was just looking to get away for a couple days and enjoy some quiet. It was late fall, so there weren't many people around the area either. According to her, everything was normal until late that night. She was downstairs reading when she heard what sounded like footsteps coming from the loft area above her. At first, she didn't think much of it. The cabin is old, and old buildings make noises. But she said these didn't sound like random creaks. They sounded like actual footsteps moving across the floor. A few steps. Pause. Then a few more. She figured maybe an animal had somehow gotten inside. The footsteps continued for several minutes, so she finally got up and went upstairs to check. Nobody was there. She checked every room, every closet, and every corner of the loft area. Nothing. No animal, no person. Nothing that could have been making the noise. She went back downstairs and sat down again. Less than 5 minutes later, she heard the footsteps start up all over again. Same pattern, walking back and forth above her. This time she said the sound felt deliberate, like someone pacing. She went upstairs a second time and again found absolutely nothing. After that, she got uncomfortable enough that she packed up some of her stuff and left the next morning instead of staying the rest of the weekend. Even now, when someone brings it up, she tells the story the same way. She doesn't claim it was a ghost or anything supernatural. She just says she heard somebody walking around upstairs in an empty cabin, and she never found an explanation for it. The last story comes from one of my cousins, and honestly, this is probably the one that creeps me out the most. This happened maybe 6 or 7 years ago during deer season. A bunch of family members were staying at the cabin, and my cousin was sleeping in one of the downstairs bedrooms by himself. The way he tells it, he woke up suddenly in the middle of the night because he heard a loud crash in the room. Not a subtle noise either. Something hitting the floor hard enough to wake him up immediately. At first, he was completely disoriented. You know that feeling when you wake up and don't really know where you are for a second? The room was dark, but he could tell something had fallen. He reached over, turned on a lamp, and started looking around. On top of a dresser in that room, there was a framed family photo. Nothing particularly heavy, but it wasn't light either. According to him, the frame had been sitting securely on the dresser before he went to bed. Now it was laying on the floor. The weird part wasn't that it had fallen. The weird part was where it landed. The dresser sat against the wall, but the picture frame wasn't directly below it like you'd expect. It had landed several feet away from the dresser, almost toward the center of the room. When he showed people the next morning, he kept saying that if it had simply tipped over and fallen, it shouldn't have ended up where it did. Of course, everyone had theories. Maybe he knocked it somehow without realizing it. Maybe it had been sitting at an angle and slid off. All reasonable explanations. But that's not the part of the story that bothered him. He said that the moment he woke up, before he even turned on the lamp, he had a really strong feeling that someone else was in the room. Not that he heard breathing. Not that he saw a shadow. Just the overwhelming feeling that he wasn't alone. He said it was strong enough that he immediately looked around the room before even checking what had fallen. After turning on the light and finding nobody there, the feeling eventually faded, but he never got comfortable enough to go back to sleep. He ended up staying awake until daylight. To this day, he still insists the picture didn't just fall on its own. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea. But combined with the other stories that have come out of that cabin over the years, it's another one that's hard to completely dismiss. Anyway, that's why I'm posting this. I'm not really looking to convince anybody that the cabin is haunted. To be honest, I still think there's probably a normal explanation for at least some of these stories. Old buildings make weird noises, memories aren't always perfect, and people can freak themselves out when they're alone in the woods. At the same time, these experiences happen to different people over a span of years. None of us were trying to create some family ghost story, and in most cases the people involved didn't even know about the other incidents when they happened. The experience with my brother is the one I have the hardest time explaining because we both heard the same noises and saw the same thing afterward. I'm mostly curious if anyone else has had similar experiences at old cabins, hunting camps, or places that have been in their family for a long time. And if anybody is familiar with the Tionesta area and has heard similar stories, I'd be interested to hear them. Maybe there's a perfectly normal explanation for all of it. I honestly don't know. I just know these stories have been passed around my family for years, and every once in a while they still come up around the campfire.
Thanks for watching. If you want to hear more stories like these, please like and subscribe.